What is up, everybody? It's your boy Raven, and I'm here because this is a video. I didn't really want to start with something like this. I debated over whether or not to do this video, and debated over a few days after I saw this video across my Twitter feed. And it's called "The OSR Is Destroying Itself." Okay. Let me tell you something. For those of you who aren't really all that well versed in tabletop role-playing games, the OSR is old school revival or old school renaissance. Old school role-playing works too. And what OSR games are, like White Box Fantastic Medieval Adventure Game, Iron Falcon, Basic Fantasy, For Golden Glory, Osric, so on and so forth. What these games do is they use an old school D&D set of rules. So they can come from Basic Expert, they can come from the original AD&D, which were like the little box sets and pamphlets, or booklets rather. They can come from AD&D First Edition, Second Edition. I don't know if Third Edition or any of that is considered OSR. Mainly because those came, anything Second Edition on back was from TSR. Everything Third Edition forward was from Wizards of the Coast. So I'll get into why I personally like those games. I, of course, found those games. But anyway, this particular person seems to think that the OSR is destroying itself, and I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm not going to deny one. There's one big factor. We do have a small. It is very small. They are outliers. We have a small group, or we have just a pocket of a few people here, a few people there, that are kind of giving us a bad name, but we have denounced them and we have moved on. I'll get into that too. Let's I want to show you something though. There's something that I think is of particular importance here, and it comes right from the description of the very first video you see on the page. And now I'm going to quote him directly. Now, I'm sure most of you are well aware that I support a fully inclusive gaming culture. Fully inclusive gaming culture, okay? I don't care who you are, what you are, your race, religion, sexuality, gender, or gender identification, creed, political affiliation, or whatever other factor could be used to motivate discrimination doesn't matter to me. To paraphrase the Haggadah, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Let all who are bored come game. I'm down with that. Okay. Here we go. As geeks and nerds ourselves, we know what it is to have been shunned, made fun of, or otherwise disrespected for our fandoms. I know. Oh boy, do I know. Coming up through the panic, I'm going to tell you one thing. I've got literal scars to prove it, baby. I know things have gotten better, or at least in slight, with being a geek now in vogue, but in my early years, being into role-playing games or computers or electronics generally earned you a wedgie. Dude, they earned me ass kickings. And some of them were bad. Now, I'm going to temper that by saying this. Some people got it a lot worse than I did. Some people even got it worse than you did. So, why would we want to do this horribleness? Not only to another person, but to our own subculture. Right? Oops. Why would we want to turn away why would we want to turn away people with the same likes and interests as ourselves just because they are interested in the same sex, don't feel right in their own skins, or have a different outlet for self-expression. Okay. Yep. Here's another quote. If I were operating a store with such a niche market, I would encourage all who come to stay, play, and hopefully spend some money. My only turnaway policy would be for potential customers being disrupted to the rest of my clientele. So I gotta ask. First question I'd have to ask, would you stock Osric? Would you host those games? Would you host Basic Fantasy, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Iron Falcon, For Golden Glory? Any of those? How about AD&D First Edition, Second Edition, Basic Expert, Beck Me? Someone just carrying a copy of the Rules Encyclopedia, would you host? Would you allow those games to be hosted? How about Chalt? Chalt's not specifically OSR, but I guarantee you he probably wouldn't, and I'm going to show you exactly why. And this was from 5 years ago, so here we go. I find it sad that in the year 2017, we're still having this problem, this fight, and still having to discuss it. Me too. So we're going to go back to his video real quick. And like I said, as bad as I got it, some people got it worse. Look at the West Memphis 3. I don't even think they played any tabletop games. I don't think they had the opportunity to. You know. I mean, one ended up on death row, the other two ended up with life in prison, and they had to literally plead guilty in an Alford plea just to get released. Believe it or not, that was well over 10 years ago. They were on unsupervised probation. They completed it with flying colors, as far as I know. Still working on getting exonerated. Yeah, let that sink in. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and play this. And I'll be stopping it and doing running commentary along the way. So here we go.
Hey everyone, it's Dave for Gamers on Games. This is going to be a quick off-the-cuff video.
I just needed to stop it for a moment and say, well, just have a look at that table. No, I'm not going to say anything. Let's move on. Let's just keep moving.
So recently I have been promoting the hashtag #DropDavecon due to Davecon's insistence on promoting Ernie Gygax Jr. as their special guest, despite his connection to Justin Lanassa, despite his connection to Dave Johnson, despite his connection to Michael Yak.
This is also a trend that I've noticed, even on Twitter. Failing the purity test. Now, personally, I'm not familiar with Ernie Gygax's own rhetoric. You know, I missed the boat on that one. I did notice. Let me take you back to this. Let's kind of get a little history into this. There was a time when TSR, quotes, announced, "We're back," and it wasn't too, it was like, I don't know, maybe about a month or two, they announced their game Giant Lands was coming. Giant Lands, of course, being a box set that is, at the time it was on pre-order for like $80. An $80 box set. Let that sink in. This $80 box set was being sold as Giant Lands by TSR, and of course, Ernie Gygax's name was on it. At some point, there was a split. I don't know when that split occurred. I just kind of looked at the price tag on that box set and went, I'll have to think about that one. Honestly, I was like, woof, that's a little steep. Granted, I'm not going to lie, I've spent more on The Lost Dungeon of Tanasport, which is one book, but I'm going to tell you right now, that book is heirloom quality. And I've seen like some other videos where that they, I know I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, but I'm just kind of trying to show you. That particular book was being reviewed. It was shown off. The people were talking about, how it felt, uh, like its construction, how the pages felt, and all that good stuff, and explaining exactly what it was. And based on the strength of that, yeah, I bought it. And I have my copy. And I think a purple cover copy sold on eBay recently. I think Griff Morgan was saying for like $500. I mean, I'm not parting with my copy. I got the Cardinal edition, which is the red cover. I'm not getting rid of that thing. That thing is original D&D. It's a piece of D&D history. I love D&D, and this thing is absolutely sweet. I will never be parting with it. In fact, if I had to run out of the place because the place was burning to the ground, that's the book I would grab. I grabbed that in my tablet because just about every book I have in print over there, I also have a digital copy of almost all of them. So I could kind of go with that. I'd probably try to save some other things too, just so I'd be able to play. But that's what I would grab. That would be the book I would rip that cabinet open, grab that book, and haul ass. But yeah. Anyway, $80 price tag. I can. I was like, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. It's going to take a while. Let me mull it over. Like I said, there was a split happened suddenly. They became wonder-filled games. They were still releasing Giant Lands. I hadn't seen much else. And then there was new TSR. New TSR, Justin Lanassa. What I particularly observed from them is something I'll also get into later. So, but this is something I've noticed. You have connections with this person. Doesn't matter what those connections are. You are them. You are gone. I really want to point something out here. During the panic, when I was brought up to be scared to death of Dungeons and Dragons as a child, and I always had a little bit of cognitive dissonance because I remember watching the cartoon. I remember getting toys when I was much younger, and that was never part of the discussion. Then suddenly it was evil. It would lead you to suicide, Satanism, drugs, murder, etc., etc. One summer, I found out the people I had entrusted my spiritual development were lying to me. It made me super, I'm talking like fuck angry. And trying to educate them in any way just got, no, you're a devil worshiper. You won't stop playing it. You and all your devil worshipping friends. Same thing, different t-shirt on, ladies and gentlemen. I'll go ahead and shut up and kick it off again. Here we go.
All of it. Not to mention his own rhetoric, which is beyond bigoted. And I've been talking to a number of people, and I'm
going to stop it again because I'm going to say I don't know what it was Ernie Gygax said. To be fair, if anybody can provide me with that, fine. But I've also noticed, like, some of these people making these points, the mere act of disagreeing with them, the mere act of having an honest criticism of something that they've done or something they've said, suddenly you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're an ist, you're a phobe, blah, 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 blah. And then they shout over you. You and all your devil worshipping friends now is you and all your racist friends. So, again, I don't know, so I can't make a fair judgment either way on that. But I am noticing some similarities in rhetoric here. That's what I'm saying. Here we go.
I got permission to quote one of them, but the one I'm going to quote really sums up what a lot of them are telling me. So we're talking about the future of the OSR, and especially in relation to the view of the OSR community. And it's interesting that the common consensus among...
I'm going to stop it right there. Let me stop you right there. The common consensus of the OSR community. I don't know this. I don't know this YouTuber here. I've never talked to him. So, never talked to me. Never asked me for my opinion, obviously. But now I'm going to kick it off again. I just want to point out, never got asked.
Among the people I've talked to,
which was how many?
Is the same, which is OSR is dying. It's
dying? Oh boy. Dying? Ooh, okay. Okay. Okay, dude.
It's dying, and it's dying very fast.
It's dying very fast, okay.
And I can't disagree with that.
Of course.
It's aging out, is what it is.
Aging out.
And the fact that the headliners and biggest representatives of the OSR community are old, bigoted white men is not helping things.
Old, bigoted white men. Here we go. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Because right now, if you say OSR to a lot of people, what they associate, especially with the recent proliferation of the Wizards of the Coast versus TSR injunction coverage that has gone absolutely viral. Like, every website finally caught up to the rest of us.
And that's true. That part happens to be absolutely correct with the WotC OSR, or not OSR, WotC TSR injunction. There have been a couple of channels that I've seen that have covered this personally and have pretty much focused, rightfully so, on Justin Lanassa's. Justin Lanassa has ties to someone working with him, if I'm not mistaken, that is that dude is for real bigoted. Something else that that went completely noticed to those of us in the OSR, was that the new Star Frontiers was supposed to be released. A few people who backed it have sent pictures of their copy, which was this spiral-bound looking book that you could get. You could get if you send it through like printme1.com or something like that. Printme1.com. I actually sent one PDF through there. I purchased it from Tim Harper. And it was a mega dungeon known as Mercanto's Lair. I sent it to printme1.com. I had it printed up. I had it sent back to me. And it turned out really, really, really nice. And I had it printed up because I plan on running it. It's a systemless dungeon. You can just drop it into any rule set that you like. So if you're playing Basic Fantasy and you want to play Mercanto's Lair, bang, it's in Basic Fantasy. It's a Basic Fantasy thing. You want to use Old School Essentials, there it is. You want to use Osric, bang, there you go. It doesn't have a system to it, and it doesn't really take anything to convert it. It's a very twisted dungeon. It's like something out of Lovecraft meets Hellraiser, and I gotta say, Tim's mind is like completely twisted, but I was impressed. And it didn't cost much, and I left him a 5-star review on it on DriveThruRPG back when I had that account. It was very nice, but in any case, that's what it looked like. Was it looked like something sent through printme1.com. I didn't get to see any of the insides of it, but from the reports that we got, there were some pretty actually racist things in there, such as white people being called Nords, and they were a superior race to darker toned races in there. And I was like, oh man, here we go. Here we go. God, why? So, also, as in the ramp up to this, in the build up, NASA had been releasing images of spaceships that had been created for it, and anytime someone asked him a question, a simple question, not even leveling a criticism, he would go absolutely bonkers and just start going on the attack. I'm talking like this dude, super fragile. Super fragile. And he just went after anyone and everyone who bothered asking a question. It was a pretty pathetic display. There are other things I'm going to get to in just a bit, but we did notice through I think it's Tabletop Tap Room, I believe is the channel. They've been reporting on it, and my personal thoughts are new TSR is going away. I think this is at best just them goading. They saw Old School Essentials kind of push the boundaries of the OGL, the Open Game License, and stare down Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast back down. In this case, I think they're staring down Wizards of the Coast, and I think they're going to back down. But in any case, it now draws all kinds of public attention onto that company. Wonderfield themselves have had some pretty questionable tactics, like using footage of a real life flood, a real life natural disaster to market their game. I mean, like I said, I was sitting there watching this game, kind of thinking, should I buy it, should I not? And every time Wonderfield posted something, it just made me lean toward, probably not. Okay, but I'll get back to that. We'll let him finish.
And is now covering it. And now it's a case of, if you talk about OSR stuff to somebody who either does not know or knows very little, the common consensus is, oh yeah, that's the Bigots.
Actually, not quite. I know I run into people every day. Most of them parents. They have children. Their children are into Stranger Things, and I'm like, how would you like to play? Do they play D&D? Is that something they do? And they're like, you know what? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And I'm like, okay, what do you play? The starter set, the essentials kit? Okay, cool. How would you like to play D&D like those guys in Stranger Things play? And the first answer, especially if the kids are familiar, their face lights up and they're like, oh yeah, let's do it that way. And I'm like, okay. So Mom, here are a list of games. These are the two, Osric and Basic Fantasy. You can get these free in PDF. If you have any questions, here's my email address. Email me. Of course, Mom takes the slip of paper that I write that down on. Her and the kids make their way out. And guess what? Kids are happy. Kids are absolutely happy. There is no, oh, that's the Bigots. So, those, and guess what? I've introduced at least 2 people, introduced them to Basic Fantasy. They never played D&D a day in their life. Didn't know what the hell it was. They knew of it, but they didn't know what the hell it was. They played this game. I ran little one-on-one one-shots for them. They loved it. They didn't hear any bigotry in there. They didn't hear me speaking in They didn't see me dressing in a brown shirt with an armband on going, "Ja, ja, we shall now play the basic fantasy RPG, and we shall do it with our job on." They didn't hear any of that shit. And they sure as hell didn't. Like, I have invited numerous people from all walks of life to play this game with me. So, no. It's not the bigots. Sorry, dude. Gotta let you down.
And this is something that's following them around. And
I wonder why.
I'm not saying everybody in the OSR is a bigot.
Well, you certainly aren't doing anything to dispel that, are you?
But unfortunately, there's enough bigots and bigot enablers that it is now the OSR.
What you're talking about are a group of outliers, dude. A group of outliers. Look, let me explain something to you. We have stated this. Okay, I cannot believe this needs to be stated again. The only real gatekeepers I have ever personally run up against were people that did anything and everything to try to keep me from buying the books. They were in the church. They were in a lot of other places too. But I'm afraid that what you're talking about here just does not add up. Okay. Here's the thing. Realistically speaking, I can't keep you out of tabletop RPGs. I cannot do it. It's impossible. You can purchase any book that's out there. You can purchase Castles and Crusades. You can purchase D&D, and that doesn't matter what edition it is. You can go play D&D Beyond. You can download for free Osric, For Golden Glory, Iron Falcon, Basic Fantasy, plenty of others. You can download free quick start guides. There is no way for me to stop you. Just as there's no way for you to stop someone like me from getting into the games that I want or like. It's that simple. Good grief. And guess what? We just read a post from you saying that you were fully inclusive. Now, I'm going to say, so am I. There are some limits to that, though. Justin Lanassa is never going to sit at my table. Neither is Dave Johnson. The people from Wonderfield, new TSR, none of them are sitting at my table. Ever. And if I find out they're at my table, I'm kicking them out. Because I don't want to be anywhere near them. Let's continue. Jeez.
Brand. And this isn't just limited to new TSR.
Actually, it pretty much is.
This is also the prominence of edgelords like Venger. This is also edgelords like Red Room.
Okay, whoa. I am going to stop you right there. First off, are Sylvia Clemente, Joe Coombs, Miguel Ribeiro, and Venger Satanis edgelords? Absolutely. Oh boy, here we go again. This shit. The fact is, they do make games with content that... It's adult content, ladies and gentlemen. It is for, and let me say this very slowly, mature audiences. With emphasis on the mature. That means when you encounter it, you either A, want to play it, or B, you don't, and you put it back on the shelf and you go find something that you want to play. Being an edgelord does not make you a racist. Let me give you an example I listened to a lot of metal as a kid. I still do. And back in the 90s, listening to, say, like Guns N' Roses wasn't considered all that edgy. You know, maybe it was. For a suburbanite white kid, yeah, probably a little edgy. It was even more edgy for a suburbanite white kid to be listening to Two Live Crew. Now, between me and my friends, we kind of started out with that. With Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, maybe some Bon Jovi, Cinderella, Poison, stuff like that. The 80s hair metal. Then we progressed into like Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, the Big Four. Their tastes got into like Pantera, Lamb of God later on. Theirs got heavier, mine got darker. So I started listening to like Type O Negative, Marilyn Manson, Gwar. Gwar I wouldn't consider dark, it's just cartoonish. Cannibal Corpse, 6 Feet Under, Black Funeral, Cradle of Filth, stuff like that. That was considered the super edgy stuff. And even those like so-called black metal bands, they weren't really Satanists at all. They used it as a provocation. They used its imagery to provoke people. That didn't make them devil worshippers. It just made them edgelords. And after a while, when you grow up and you see that, you're like, okay, and you kind of appreciate the music for what it is. Okay, well, they're... okay, whatever. Then you had bands like Marilyn Manson, which on the surface level looked edgy. When you took a deeper look, he was absolutely criticizing society. He was criticizing what was going on in civilization. Gwar was so over the top and cartoonish you couldn't take him seriously. And they were more comical than anything. And on top of that, when they were put on the Jerry Springer show, Jerry was about to try to drag them, saying that their music, encouraged rape. To which the lead singer, Dave Brockie, aka Odorous Urungus, said, when are we going to stop talking about rape and start talking about us? They spent their time trolling Springer. It was hilarious. Pete Steele appeared on Springer. Typical dark sense of humor. Those are available on YouTube, by the way. You can look those up. Cannibal Corpse had songs like Stripped, Raped, and Strangled, The Pickaxe Murders, and She Was Asking For It. I'll be honest with you, they never murdered anyone, and they certainly didn't encourage it. They just sang about some pretty horrible atrocities. And there were groups that wanted all that music banned. All of it, without exception. Even the hair metal stuff. They wanted that banned too. Typical censorious Puritans. They want it banned. Why? Because no one can possibly be expected to be mature enough to know when someone's doing something tongue-in-cheek, can they? Not at all. Yeah, okay. So, edgelords. In the words of Scott Hall, moving on.
And the list goes on and on. And Evil DM, because he's got his issues. But it goes on and on and on. And this is creating a situation where people don't want to get involved. And you know what happens to a hobby or a community that gets no new blood? It dies. So...
Pause. This hobby has a ton of new blood. The hobby itself has had more new blood in it in the past 3 years due to COVID than anything else. The OSR is about maybe 10 years old, if that, or probably a little bit more. Probably about more like, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, maybe. But we got a lot of new blood in the past 3 years. And in that 3 years, let's go back a little bit before that. Let's go back to about 2016, 2015. That's when 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons hit the market. Wizards of the Coast promised to bring old school and new players together. And I think the 3 core rule books, they're serviceable. They could very well do it. There have been plenty of third-party adventures created that are really good. I should know. I have I have at least 3 of them. One of them, and this is just physical. I ended up picking up a few freebies today off of BigGeekEmporium.com. By the way, you need to check that site out. I've got the Chronicles of Iris, which made me rethink playing a rat folk. I've never even considered it before. Greg Lambert made it look like a lot of fun. So it also came with its companion book, Shadows of Padfoot Alley. That's also for 5th edition. I've got The Doom That Came to Astrius on the way. Those are in the same series. They're from the same guy. And I can tell you, The Doom That Came to Astrius is more like sword and sorcery. It's more akin to Conan. Iris is more akin to, say, The Secret of Nim, Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings. So that's more high fantasy. This is more sword and sorcery. So we actually get the best of both worlds in the same world. There's also Crown of the Oathbreaker, which is a massive 900 plus page book. The PDF put like 4 pounds on my phone and my tablet. I'm pretty sure the cabinet in which my desktop tower is sitting is like straining to hold the weight. That's a joke. Ha ha, chuckle, chuckle. So, what we've noticed is that Wizards had been taking certain older settings, and they've been trying to adapt them for 5th edition, and they've had problems. Like legitimate little issues. Nothing terrible. They were just little mechanical issues. And we talked about it. We talked about it because then we could share ways of fixing it for our respective tables. The beauty of the internet, ladies and gentlemen, sharing information. Who'd have thunk it? And then, right after that, I want to say about like maybe 2019, 2020, that's when we started seeing stuff like Strixhaven, Curse of Strahd revamped, and then, just recently, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. I'm glad some of you, I'm glad I'm light sensitive right now because I just rolled my eyes so hard I saw my brain. And these settings were absolute garbage. They're absolutely terrible, and I've read them. I've read them. They released Spelljammer. Now, let's talk about racism in gaming for just a minute. I think his name's Dave. We'll go with that for right now. So, Dave, let's talk about racism in gaming. The new Spelljammer. WotC wrote this. It got past all the sensitivity readers, and then they released it. What got past the sensitivity readers? Well, before I get to that, there was a real lack of ship-to-ship combat rules, which is one of the things that people who love Spelljammer wanted. I'm not a huge fan of Spelljammer. It wasn't one of my settings that I absolutely loved. It was just one of those I was just kind of like, okay, D&D in space, cool. You know, I don't know. Maybe I couldn't suspend my disbelief for it enough. I just kind of preferred portal travel myself. It seemed to work a little better. They couldn't be bothered to copy that over. But what they could copy over were the Hadozi. And they gave him an origin story. An origin story where an evil wizard visited their planet. These were like an indigenous ape-like people of this planet. He began performing experiments on them, and then he enslaved them, and he was going to sell them. Eventually they found themselves free, but they were just happy workers. That got past sensitivity readers. Someone on Twitter called that out. That was Wizards of the Coast this year. So, you know what, Justin Lanassa, you've got a point with him. New TSR, you definitely have a point with them. But you're failing. You're pointing out the speck in one eye, failing to see the log in your own. And I'm going to call that out. See, the Satanic Panic taught me one thing. I'm going to freely admit I'm a dumbass. You want to know why I'm a dumbass? Because I never really think of where I am. And I put that thought at the back of my mind because when a lie like these, I mean, don't get me wrong, you are honest and truthful about Lanassa and New TSR, and I'm surprised you didn't bring Wonderfield Games into this, because some of the shit they've done has been super questionable. But instead, you're going after Miguel, Sylvia, Joe, and Venger because they're edgy. Ooh. And you won't even point this out with Wizards. Seriously, dude? You want to know where the real racists are? They're in Wizards, dude. Yeah. Wizards has them the same as everywhere else. You not pointing them out, you're enabling them just as much. Let's move on.
In the effort to keep old school gaming alive, it is in fact slitting its own throat. And it's
okay. No, it's not.
sad because there are.
Oh, it's sad? Huh. I got a couple other things to show you. Yeah, it's sad, all right. We'll see how sad it makes him.
There are things to be learned from the OSR. There are things to be remembered and kept alive.
Yeah, no shit. That's why we have games like Basic Fantasy. That's why we have games like Osric. That's why we have games like Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics. I mean, I've already made the list, dude. I don't know what you're looking for. Also, Monkey Paw Games decided to get involved. That's another story for another time. Maybe even this time. Who knows?
The bigotry that is being promoted is not one of them. Now, while we're talking about promoting bigotry, let's get back to the Davecon aspect. So first of all, hashtag drop Davecon. Still a thing we're going to promote.
You know what? I'll do you one better. Drop all cons. That's what I did. It saved me a lot of sanity.
Davecon is putting on a pedestal for all to see Ernie Gygax Jr., who, as I stated earlier...
My question is, are you required at all to listen to him? No, you're not. He's going to get up there. He's going to give a lecture. Do you have to attend it? No. Absolutely not. And if you do, are you required to just nod and agree with everything he says? I can think of a few cons where you are not allowed to ask certain questions to certain key members because it is considered racist. You're not allowed to level any kind of constructive criticism or otherwise because it's considered racist. So let's not pretend this door swings one way, pal.
Is associated with a Nazi enabler, an actual Nazi.
Okay, that's been established as fact. The Nazi enabler in question is, of course, Justin Lanassa. The Nazi in question, I don't even remember the name. That's how forgettable that person was.
And has said it outright in interviews with Jedian that he is willing to accept everything that comes out of Justin Lanassa, everything that comes out of Dave Johnson, because he thinks there's money to be made.
And okay, time to get to a little story. I know I keep pausing and ranting, but it's true. These things I'm telling you. Just recently, Wonderfield Games, like I can tell you, me, Law Dog Strikes at Law Dog Strikes on Twitter, and at Yodano, chiefly among us, we watched Yodano get attacked, and yeah, that did not go well. I wish I could pull that thread up. And Yodano, Law Dog, if y'all are watching this video, please find your respective threads, post them in the comments down below. Because if you've been to any of our feeds, you'll see that all three of us, myself included, just from a customer standpoint, I saw that as including the new TSR Justin Lanassa attacks on people who just asked questions. We saw that as very terrible ideas in marketing, to say the least. And from that point forward, I muted Wonderfield Games. I muted them. I muted them and the people that worked for them. I will not be buying that game. And I decided to go on a little hostile marketing campaign myself. I didn't create this game. I had nothing to do with it, but I will say this. Goodman Games sells a first-time fan kit for both Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics. The one for Mutant Crawl Classics, after shipping, is going to cost you about $40. That is half the price of Giant Lands. What is the difference between Giant Lands and Mutant Crawl Classics? Absolutely not much. Maybe mechanics-wise they're different. But the thing is, they're based on the exact same game, and that is Gamma World. There you go. Gamma World was a game where it was, far future, post-nuke fight, post-cataclysm. And you had mutants, you had cyborgs, you had all kinds of stuff going on, and those are the kind of things you were up against. Those are the kind of things you had to face. And so Mutant Crawl Classics kind of does that, and they do it in a very fun way. But let me tell you what you get. With Wonderfield, you get their little box set, which has, I think, about like 3-4 books, a couple maps, maybe some dice. I don't know. With Mutant Crawl Classics, that first-time fan kit, you get the MCC Core Rulebook, and you get an adventure setting. Print and PDF. You get a GM screen, or judge's screen as they like to call it. You get 2 issues of the Goodman Gazette, and you get a set of Goodman Games' dice, which they have a lot of the same dice that you would see in any role-playing game, but they do have some that are different, and they're pretty much exclusive to those games. The set of dice alone will set you back about $30-$35. Why not just go ahead and purchase the entire system, get it all, there you go. That's a way better deal. And I was one of the ones that pointed that out. I was like, yeah, because I have it, I love it, I think it's awesome. Don't buy that shit, buy this instead. And you know what? I think Yodano might have ordered it, but he canceled his order. At least that's what I was getting from it. And then I went back and I did an entire thread on that. An entire thread on Twitter where I pointed out who was who and why it was going down. This guy missed it. No kidding. Next.
I have had several people bring up the point of, well, his brain is fried due to substance abuse and addictions. And that may be the case. to still not quite excuse him, especially when he is acting as a mouthpiece for a company and for an organization, and also has name recognition and clout to serve.
Let me pause for just a second. See, it's not the OSR slitting their throats. Let's be a little more accurate. It is New TSR and Wonderfield slitting their own throats.
As a figurehead. And he has that name and clout, or name recognition and clout, as recognized by the fact that, again, Davecon has him listed as a special guest. Hashtag drop Davecon. So,
here's the thing. Welcome to real life, where you're not going to be able to control anything. There are things that are just well out of your control, dude. It's a fact of life. But here's where you're wrong. See, Davecon does not have to drop anyone. They can, and that would be totally up to them. And if they dropped, now, again, provide me with what he said, not just he said this, he said that. Provide me with the direct quotes. I'll determine whether or not I wouldn't attend anyway. I just way too much nonsense to have to deal with. Might attend VentureCon though. That's a small gathering. One I don't think I'm not really all that comfortable being in a large crowd of people. That just comes from working in a prison for nearly a decade, which that happened. So crowded environments, I'm not really big on those. As a matter of fact, there was a con in Philadelphia. Actually, I think it's coming up. And I was asked if I wanted to go, and I was like, no, thank you. I'm good. I know there are like exclusives you can get there and all that, but to me, they're not worth it. I'm okay. I just don't go. If it's a small con, yeah, I'll consider going. But if it's a bigger one, count me out. Anyway, conventions do not have to drop anyone just because you're feeling butthurt over them. Likewise, you're right. You don't have to attend. It's all risk mitigation, dude. What do you want to do? What do you want? You don't get to control anything. You want to control things? I'll tell you exactly how you do it. You get yourself on the committee that makes those decisions. That's how you do it.
I did say that there is a quote I want to get to, and I'm going to do that now.
Thank goodness.
So, I got permission from Polykid to quote them, and here is the quote. I suspect OSR is doomed to age out and vanish. The old bigot stereotype.
Let me point something out. John Torres, the basic expert here on YouTube. One of my people. Love him to death. He started in 4th edition. He went to 5th edition. He's playing 5th edition Adventures in Middle-earth right now. But his thing is the OSR. He loves basic fantasy. He loves running BECME through a combination of basic fantasy and the Rule Cyclopedia. He's also done many videos on Classic Traveler, which I just got the book and I need to catch up on those. Instead, I'm doing this. Yay. Aging out? I don't think so. Because John is in his early 30s, if I'm not mistaken, and still very young. And he's interviewing guys like Griffith Morgan, who put together and released Secrets of Blackmore, which is a documentary that will take you through the history of Dave Arneson and his involvement with the eventual building of the original Dungeons and Dragons. And I mean, Lost Dungeon of Tanisborg by Greg Svensson. Absolutely awesome to look at.
OSR player is what is propagandized by so many like Lanas.
Propagandized, huh? Yeah. We could talk propaganda, dude. I'm pretty sure you're not wanting me to go there.
So young players and more enlightened players keep well away from the OSR.
Well enlightened players. Now we're gonna go ahead and accuse. Didn't he just say, I'm sure it's not all OSR players, but the young players, which we just disproved that, and more enlightened players. Okay. You know what? I'll come back to that.
Our community. RPG playing itself, however, seems to be healthier than ever. And there is
that's what I was saying before, dude.
no point in that I disagree. There is a wider acceptance, even with WotC's failures, and they do not exactly adhere 100% to what they claim to stand for.
On top of that, let's talk about that for a moment. Yeah, now they're being told if you do not accept flying halflings and flying elves, you're racist. Ladies and gentlemen, that should tell you something right there. No matter how many demands you give into, it's never enough for these people. Never. It will just keep going on, just keep going on, just keep going on. More and more demands until what you have is a hollowed out husk of what you had before. And we all know all it is a polished turd. That's it. That's all you're getting. More and more demands. By the way, how's Labyrinth Lord doing? Oh, they're releasing a second edition of their rule set, which is also basic expert based, by the way. How's Old School Essentials doing? Pretty good, last I checked. How's Basic Fantasy? Still riding high. Now, do they have the sales that WotC has? No. Why? Because a lot of that stuff is available for free. Labyrinth Lord is no exception. All the ones I've listed you can get for free in PDF. Go to lulu.com. Look it up if you don't believe me.
But they try. And they try because it's a good market strategy.
It is. Yeah, let's go back to that point you made about WotC not exactly following their own rules. Representatives from WotC have told all of us that cultural appropriation is a thing, don't you know? And other people's cultures are not to be a costume. Which is exactly what they did with Adventures Through the Radiant Citadel. I rest my case.
Meanwhile, the failing OSR and its bigots, in a infantile attempt to undermine, all they can do is shriek in shrill but muted voices.
Here we go, accusing the other of the very thing you're doing.
That everything is woke, everything is too liberal, and that they're the real thing.
Well, let me ask you something. Explain to me how Journeys to the Radiant Citadel is not. Don't worry, I'll wait.
You're not the real thing.
I beg to differ.
If no one wants to come to your table, no one wants to buy your product, no one wants to be involved with you.
Well, if no one wants to buy the product, it's because even on the back of Basic Fantasy books, it says, please do not buy this book. Stop by basicfantasy.org/downloads and download it for free. Try before you buy. I mean, God, do we have to make it any clearer? They offer better products in many ways. More value packed in per penny. I don't know how else to put this to you. Jeez. And let me put it to you this way. If you're not into the whole alignment system, Wretched Bastards is a great game. because it operates on your character's entire alignment centers around one of the 7 deadly sins. You have to choose one of those sins and base your character's personality around it. So a barbarian character could easily settle for wrath. You could have a bard who's a bit lecherous. That would be lust. You could have a dwarf who suffers from the sin of avarice, which means it's not greed, it's avarice, which means that he has an unhealthy desire for money. Gold, silver, jewels, it doesn't matter. That dude will try to get the lion's share of it. Offers an alternative, and it's based on the BX rule set. It's not a big book. There are plenty of adventures to go with it, and yes, they're edgy. The last one that just came out, that was most publicized, was Labia. Labia, you are literally doing a dungeon crawl to lift a curse from a princess. What is the curse? Well, look at the cover and you tell me. If you're not really willing to look at the cover, her lady parts have teeth and tentacles. It's by the way, I have that one on the way. So I'll be doing a review on the Wretched Verse, by the way.
You? Then guess what? You are on your own way out. And like all things that do not mesh with their environment, they go extinct. And I'm sorry. That's what happened to the dinosaurs.
Nope.
And now you are the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs actually went out due to a meteor impact. Tell me, Dave, exactly how were the dinosaurs supposed to mesh with their environment when their environment was trying to kill them? Don't worry, I'm sure your biology will absolutely be impeccable in response.
You are going extinct.
You wish.
And it is sad. We will mourn your passing.
No, you won't.
We will.
No, you won't.
Even the bigots, we will mourn your
No, you won't.
passing. But ultimately, you dying out, you vanishing from the game space,
Which is not happening at all.
makes room for better, newer people who are
But not all OSR, y'all.
more willing to evolve, more willing to adapt, and will better fit the new environment.
I'll bet. Let's see what happens when you reach 9th edition.
And that is it. I suspect, in all honesty, given the age of OSR and its members,
About 10 years out of the 50?
easily within 10 to 20 years,
Oh, here's where the confidence comes in. Within 10 to 20 years. Dude, let me tell you something. See, this is where you are completely ignorant of the history of this hobby. This hobby started with wargaming back in the 1960s, probably even the 1950s. This hobby, in and of itself, is well over half a century old. Do you know why it's well over half a century old? Is because we told stories of heroism, of facing the odds, and of defeating them. That is what kept this entire hobby alive. As a matter of fact, the wargamers were initially appalled at the thought of Dungeons and Dragons coming into the hobby. They were opposed to fantasy gaming being part of this hobby. And, there was suddenly, I guess wargaming is going to go away. No, it hasn't. There are plenty of people still painting up very, very small miniatures, creating complete diorama battlefields right there on top of a ping pong table. and doing wargaming. Still, is it a great multitude of people? No. Is it as many as there were back then? No, but it has not died. And as a matter of fact, there are more people within the small circle I hang out in. They are talking about the wargaming that they do. As a matter of fact, there are some very inexpensive supplements out there. They're on DriveThruRPG and I think even Lulu.com. You can get them for just a couple bucks, and they're called Ring Mail and a couple of other things. And guess what? They're just like chainmail. It's the same rule set. People are still actively tabletop wargaming. Look at Warhammer 40k. What the hell do you think that is? But somehow, the preservation. And let me just, before I say that, when Osric came out, this was because Wizards of the Coast had vaulted everything second edition and moving back. They vaulted it. They bought it and they stuck it in a vault, and they weren't willing to release it. Then suddenly Osric comes along because we were tired of being told, well, and not directly, but by action, well, you'll play this game our way or you won't play it at all. Then they found themselves losing market share and they had to do something, so they unvaulted it. Welcome to it, dude. If you're so sure this is dying or it's on its way out and it's dying, oh my gosh, it's hemorrhaging, then explain to me why you picked 10 to 20 years. I'm going to say this. I'll make a bold prediction right now. I give new TSR about maybe 2 years at the most, and that's me being very generous. And Wonderfield games getting about maybe 3. Because they have been so atrocious to their own potential market that they're not going to survive on what they have. They are a niche of a niche. If any entity is dying, it's the two of them. Get it straight. Jesus.
It'll be over. There's too many of you getting old.
We're in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, dude. It's not that old. As a matter of fact, you're probably about my age. So, can it?
There's too many of you with ill health. And there's too many of you stressing yourselves to death.
Stressing ourselves to death. Yeah. About that. No, we're not stressing ourselves to death. What's happening is it's you and yours that are stressing smooth out. Everything that falls within a 10-mile radius of disagreement with you is some kind of isterphobe. Whether we agree with you on some things, oh, that's fine, until there's a moment of disagreement on one thing, no matter what it is, no matter how reasonable it is. And then suddenly, you and yours have to just come along and scream and screech and hashtag drop Davecon. If anyone's stressing themselves out, it's you. Me, I just look at something and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to be for me. It's absolute garbage. And I don't buy it. Again, mature audiences. Get it right.
In an attempt to own libs.
Actually, I'm not trying to own anything but gaming books, dude.
That you will wind up passing. You will pass. We will mourn briefly.
You will repeat yourself, and repetition does not loan it any credibility.
And that will be it.
Okay. Whatever, dude.
And you know what the funny thing is? Everything you...
The funny thing is, your virtue signaling here?
...have strived to maintain and keep alive will ultimately wither and die away.
Ooh, so edgy. Tell me more.
except for to be seen in a museum, but not the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum, but to be seen at museums and display cases at Gen Con or Origins. And that'll be it. It'll be like, oh hey, remember when this got published? Yeah, this got it all started. Cool, let's go buy.
So when you're talking about remember when this got published, remember when this got it all started? Yeah, that was Osric, dude. Stuart Marshall and Matthew Finch, Swords and Wizardry White Box, Swords and Wizardry Complete Rules, plenty of other books. Yeah, those are the guys that got it started all right. And you know what? It's still going to be there because people who are gaming on a budget, dude, are not going to sit there and go for the $50 books unless they can afford it. So let's talk for just a moment. I'm going to assume, based on the things that you've said so far, and we're about 32 seconds away from your closing here, thank goodness for that, that you fall to the left in politics, and that you're for the workers, and, you know, that sort of thing. You're for the little guy. Why are you over there defending massive corporations? I have to ask that question. Why are you not saying, and this would be accurate, because I've said it myself here, Lanassa, Johnson, blah, 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 all that bunch right there, Wonderfield and New TSR, they're an embarrassment. Now, I'm willing to agree with you on that one. But I'm also willing to go one step further and say, hey, guys, guess what? Osric for Golden Glory, Basic Fantasy, Iron Falcon, you know, games like that, you can download them for free in PDF. Then all you need is some dice and maybe a tabletop battle mat and some tokens that you could probably make out of saved bottle caps. And there you go. You're off to the races. You're playing. Not only that, but since they're free, you can download them yourself and just distribute them to friends. It's free. I thought that was kind of a thing. They're not going anywhere, dude. Wake up. Face facts. Because there are still people like me, there are still very young people that I am teaching this to who enjoy the hell out of it. And even I will tell them, look, stay away from that bunch over there, stay away from that bunch over there. There are, look at this, okay? The Red Room has released quick start guides of every one of their games. Wretched Bastards, Wretched Country, Wretched Epoch, Wretched Exploitation, Wretched Space, Wretched New Flesh, something, I don't think Something Wretched this way comes. Let me take that one back. But those 6 games that are in place right this second have quick start guides that are available for free. Just the rules, everything that you need to know to get started playing the game. They're just like giving it away. Venger's games, if you buy his games, they're inexpensive. Right now, I think the Chalt books are going for like $10 a piece. Same with Castles and Crusades if you go to Drive-Thru RPG, which I don't. Not unless I have to. I go to Big Geek Emporium instead. Cowpunchers and OSR. Well, I think he said he didn't classify that as OSR. So, John, if you're watching, I'm sorry, I might be mistaken. But they're very inexpensive. RPG Pundit, Star Adventurer, very inexpensive. You know, Victor Gorchev, Waste Runners, based on Cowpunchers, extremely inexpensive. They're not going away, dude. Especially when people are feeling the pain in their wallets right now, they're going to go for something much less expensive. So before you go, oh, yeah, and I've already seen this video. Oh, yeah, that. Yes, I remember it. Let's go buy the new thing. Yeah, that new thing is going to cost you 50 to 60 bucks a book. Free League Publishing just went up about 15% in price to keep up with inflation. They fought it as long as they could. I'm not even mad at them for it because I understand. Learn a little something about what you're saying, dude. Talking out of your ass.
The new thing. So, I'm sad to say it, guys, but this is
Shut up.
what ultimately will be your legacy. Your legacy is to be 6 feet under with barely anyone remembering that you existed. Except for videos like this. That'll be the last thing that counts as a memorial to you.
Okay.
That's it.
That's hysterical.
Bye.
Bye. Alright, so now that we're done with that, I'll show you a couple of other things here. So after all that he said in his opening manifesto here, and then he spent that entire 10 minutes-ish railing like a child. Ha ha, we're right, you're wrong, that sort of thing. He didn't know when to stop. And look at this. The OSR is destroying itself. Follow up and update. Basically, in that particular video from 3 days ago, he called us a bunch of man children and everything else. Said we were proving his point. Right now, I'm supposedly proving his point. Yeah, okay. Sure, bud. Here in videos. Dealing with OSR outrage is like dealing with small children. Okay, well, not all in the OSR, he says. Not all in the OSR, but certainly all in the OSR. He couldn't. This is typical. This is the typical thing, ladies and gentlemen. It is not enough that they found a bad guy. Now everybody has to be that bad guy. Oh, you play those games, you're that bad guy. They blame the whole for what the few have done because why wouldn't they? These must be the types of people that when they were in school, I'm sure some of you remember this little scenario. I'm going to describe it. You got that one little jackass kid in class that won't stop acting up, and then the teacher goes, okay, nobody goes to recess because of him, or nobody goes because of her. I'm sure that's the kid that just loved that. Had to have. The rest of us were like, you know, and we were ready to kick that kid's ass. This guy probably would have defended that kid. Oh, but it's not his fault, you know. Yeah, I'll bet. And that's it. That is the OSR is dying or whatever. The fact is, if it's not all OSR, then I gotta know. Dave, what have you done to, I don't know, maybe help out? I mean, why be like that, right? Why be like that? You said it right here. Right here on your front page. Read more. Oops, gotta expand that. Why would we want to do this horribleness to someone, not only to another person, but to our own subculture? Why would we want to turn away people with the same likes and interests in ourselves, but just because they're interested in the same sex, don't feel right in their own skins, or have a different outlet for self-expression? Well, damn, Dave, why? I have to ask, why? You see, here's the thing. People like Dave, they've been fomenting this kind of thing, and now they just have a bad guy to put up. They're going to hold that up in front of you. We've always been some kind of istrophobe because we don't play games their way. Because we're doing it wrong. Well, Dave, I'm going to tell you one thing. Personally, you can call me all kinds of names. You can call me anything you want. But, dude, I'm already used to it. I'm a devil worshiper to some. I'm a Nazi to others. I don't give a shit, dude. You want to know why? Because I know me. I know me. My circles know me. The people that sit at my table and play with me know me. You don't know a thing about me. And you know what? If I had a group that said, we'd really like to play 5th edition, I'd be like, okay, cool. You know what? I got a few adventures. They're really cool. I think you'd dig them. Want to give them a whirl? We'd have endless playability with pretty much all of them. Sky's the limit. Want to do it? All right, let's do it. If my group said, hey, we'd really like to keep it super simple. I got Basic Fantasy. Let's do it. I got Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Also, yes, James Rogge, Edgelord. Homie owns that shit. And guess what? It's for mature audiences, Dave. Is that why you're feeling left out? Because obviously you haven't acted that way throughout this entire thing. And yeah, I've laughed at some of your points because they're hysterical. That's it, man. That's all I got. Dave, we know why you want to tear down things. And here's the thing. I'm going to hold up a mirror in front of you. What have you done? As a matter of fact, I'll share the entire thread that I posted. Entire thread coming in hot. Let's do that, shall we? I'm going to just... Sorry, I have to make some adjustments here to get my screen back. Because I want to make sure... Oops. Wrong one. Made a little boo-boo there. Okay, there we go. Alright, so I'm going to come in hot with this one because you need to see it, Dave. If you haven't seen it already, I'm sure you have. I'm certain you've seen it. Let me just find that one because, quite honestly, there have been a lot of people liking this thread. And, guess what? This is one of those threads that it took me a little time to get everything out. It wasn't a rant. It was just it was what it was. And it's this one. Dave, I hope you're not hiding behind this. Because this is an obvious troll. And then you followed me on Twitter. And I said, I think I can help with your confusion, but first let's talk about this. Isn't it racist and anti-gay what we want? Isn't that why we support Judges Guild, Red Room, Vigil Satanists of Dave Johnson? I am confused. Help? Well, yeah, you are confused. And I said, no, absolutely not. Let's make something super clear, super quick. Venger, Miguel, Sylvia, just to name 3 specifically, make games with content that makes some uncomfortable. Are they edgelords? Yes. Is it meant to be taken seriously? Very rarely. Enjoying the games that these 3 creators offer is akin to a record store offering Guar, Cannibal Corpse, 6 Feet Under, Marilyn Manson, Demure Borgir, Cradle of Filth. You have groups that want all content from these bands banned altogether, citing bullshit like they're harmful to our children, which is a nice way of saying they want to abdicate their parental responsibilities to some committee. You take these books, apply the rules that work, discard the ones that don't, and you have a good time like any other role-playing game. The Wretched Verse, Chalt, and many others like it will not be everyone's cup of tea for one reason or another. Sexual Holocaust, an adventure setting for Rexploitation, was a sort of film noir exploitation film setting with more in common with the film Hellraiser than it would some kind of BDSM handbook. That's to name one example. Labia, a setting for Wretched Bastards, is an actual adventure and dungeon crawl to end the curse on a princess, and you can tell by the cover what the curse is. The whole point of the Wretched Verse is that you're not playing characters that are heroic or good. They may do heroic deeds, but they themselves are serious bastards. You do not have to be a vengeful, avaricious, lecherous dickhead to play any one of the characters you'll play based on one of the 7 deadly sins, of which I just named 3. You'll simply play a character who's like that, and it is an interesting mechanic that I haven't seen before. It stands out and adds a bit of a challenge. For those who hate the alignment system, this offers an alternative. There's literally a setting for every preference with this particular system, and they built a universe, and nowhere in any of these books, nowhere in any video or communication from them, have they ever excluded anyone based on skin color or what they do in the bedroom from buying these books or playing them. And here is a picture of all of the ones that I currently have in physical format. And yeah, there's Mr. Bub. Rather cozy at my coffee table. And I say again, in fact, I want you to have a look at Wretched New Flesh and Wretched Country. That's this book here and this book here. These two books. The basic expert, John Torres, did the artwork for it. He's Latino. He and the Red Room have a great working and personal relationship. So much for the racism there. Chult is the world created by Avenger Satanis. It is a harsh, brutal, colorful, weird, and scary world in which the character you create finds itself. It has over-the-top pop culture references, and nearly everything about it, like the Wretchedverse, is tongue firmly planted in cheek. Venger's views, game aside, do lean to the right, while Miguel and Sylvia's, in comparison, lean a little more left. The thing is, and I said the difference is, I really wanted to kind of reword this a little bit, but, you know, no edit button on Twitter. At least not yet, so they say. The thing is, solely from my observations of them and their work, is that they would rather come together to provide games that don't take a political stance because they're business minded. They themselves take the political stances, not their games. They don't shoe, with the exception of Venger's satirical nature. He doesn't shove politics into his game. He doesn't make you believe it. He doesn't require you to believe it. They'd like to make money, and they should. They've done really good work. It's entertaining. They're quality games, and personally, I recommend both the Wretchedverse and Chult confidently. Now, let's talk about your problem. Waterfield Games, New TSR, La NASA, etc., Law Dog Strikes, and Yodano, and others who follow my feed and theirs can tell you we've grown absolutely tired of their shit. We've watched them attack people for merely asking questions, blocking people who called out their terrible marketing, and their attacks on the very people they were trying to sell their game to. We have rejected these clowns outright, and I have personally pointed out that the reincarnated Gamma world is overpriced. Want proof? Here you go. And here's the proof right here. I'm going to put it right on screen for everybody to see. Here it comes. Someday the print will come. I got a lot of tabs open, ladies and gentlemen. I got a lot of programs open too. Here we go. MCC First Time Fan Kit, $30. You get core rulebook, it says hardcover print in PDF. I got softcover. Oh well, no big deal. But you get print and PDF of that. Warlords of Atos, print and PDF. Oh yes, the Judge's Screen, you also get print and PDF of that. You get the Dungeon Crawl Classics Dice, Goodman Games Gazette Volume 2, Number 5, and Volume 2, Number 6. You get all that for $30, maybe $35 after shipping. So yes, true OSR people have not only denounced them. Do you see what I'm talking about? It does no good to denounce these people, because people like Dave over here obviously don't get it. Not only denounce them, but continue to show that new TSR doesn't have a leg upon which to stand in court, as WotC owns the intellectual property to which they're trying to lay claim. No, we're not following these people because we're anti-gay, racist, or any other ist or phobe. Hey, look, one of my absolute best friends on Twitter, we bonded over horror. She liked horror games. I provided a few pages of something I had written for 10 Candles. And when I just put the idea out there, she loved it. Guess what? She's married to the woman of her dreams. I would still invite both of them to the table. I would happily sit at theirs. I would love to see what their take on extreme horror gaming looks like. We're sick as fuck of being lectured on what terrible people we are, so we're just playing what we like, buying what we like, creating what we like, offering it for sale or for free in a lot of cases. We like games, Dave, just games. No lectures, no bullshit. We don't want it sanitized. We don't want to listen to screeching when it's very obvious nothing will ever be good enough. So we're not trying to earn the points. Fuck them. Fuck all of them. We don't care. We're going to get called names one way or the other no matter how much ground we give, and that's evident in that video. It's people just like you that have fomented this kind of sentiment and boosted it well before new TSR came into play, and will keep doing it after. It's because you feel threatened by the existence of games made and played by people who have given up trying to please any of you. It's over. We're done. We're not you're not sitting at our tables, and you never will, and really that's for the best, Dave. As I pointed out last night when I did the live stream with the tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans for our Ragnarok episode, you can only alienate so many people for so long before you yourself have been alienated. Then your only audience is the gullible and the completely delusional. Let me add something else that I pointed out last night in the podcast. I swear I'm done. Venger, Miguel, and Sylvia have turned out so much in the last 3 years that has been well received by a small but dedicated base of fans who find this content a welcome relief, myself included. This is an emotional threat to people like him, because all he has is his virtue signal, and that's all. So you have options when faced with talent like Venger, Miguel, Sylvia, Victor Gorchev, John Torres, Grim Jim, RPG Pundit, Greg Lambert, Black Flag Printing Press, Paul Pumick Press, and many others. You either enjoy what content they put out, you surround yourself with them and learn from them. I've opted for the first two. Or you make every attempt to tear them down as a knee-jerk reaction because what's going on is you have a mirror being held up to you and you're being asked, okay, what have you done? And if your response is to tear them down, then you haven't listened, you haven't learned. The rest of it after the question is asked to add, you don't need superpowers here. You just have to have the discipline it takes in order to get it done. What you don't know, ask your predecessors, and what you'll find is a wealth of people who will guide and help you. Do what you can, learn what you don't know, and get it done. The reason behind trying to tear someone down like them lies in a fuck ton of little dick energy and little man syndrome that doesn't quit because getting rid of their contribution means you don't have to feel so small. Well, it won't make you bigger. You'll still be small because you refuse to grow, but the thing you will have done is eventually turn many more against you. And there's only so long you can scream ist or phobe to the rafters before no one believes you, and then you make way for the real ists and the real phobes. I mean, keep crying wolf if you want, but it's not hurting us anymore. All of us have learned something, and it's this. We no longer require your consent, your permission, or your approval, and it's just that simple. It's never been easier to self-publish, and right now there are many people within that cancel culture shit that are being told to go eat a buffet of dicks. Wonderfield, New TSR, Lanassa, and the rest were clearly told to go eat a buffet of cock a long time ago. And more are joining in every day to tell them that. New TSR is going to lose in court. Wonderfield will most likely end up not being able to sell that overpriced reincarnation of Gamma World. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that Venger runs laps around the sales of Giant Lands with his Chalt trilogy. Those are three monster books for double the price of Giant Lands altogether. The full trilogy is about $160, but they still pack more value, they pack more quality and replayability than Giant Lands ever will. Now, I'm going to put the cap on this and call it a day, Dave. I hope it's not you under that account, because you're not going to like this at all. On your channel, your first video's description contains that quote, why would we want to turn away people? It includes different outlet for self-expression. Hypocritical to suddenly raise your imaginary internet dragon slayer blade and hop off onto your crusade like that. All those people I've mentioned don't turn anyone away. No one. They put it out there that they want games to sell so they can make more games. Furthermore, I can have disagreements with all of them, and only one has ever decided that they didn't want to associate with me. We still talk, he and I do. We just don't follow each other because we're agreeing to disagree. That's the greater majority of the OSR. That is us. Your name calling won't work. The stupid shit isn't going to matter. You can't possibly make us care anymore. And there's fuck all you can do about it. You're not an activist. You're just a ne'er-do-well who can't answer one question. What have you actually done? That's all I got for tonight, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging with me. I know this got really long. Now that we have this going, now that it's all set up, you can look forward to not interviews. Those will come later. I'll figure out a way to get those very presentable. But we will have reviews on Cowpunchers, Waste Runners, Chalt, The Wretched Verse, Chronicles of Iris, I'm sorry, I keep mispronouncing that from time to time. The Doom That Came to Astrius, many, many more. Castles and Crusades even. I'll even talk about what I love about that. Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics, I'm sure those reviews have been done before, but who cares? I want to do them. I like them. I want to share what I love about them with you. Osric, Basic Fantasy, For Golden Glory, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, Book of Antithesis, The Lost Dungeon of Tonnisborg. That one's going to be a little tricky because all I have is a physical book. I don't have a PDF. Now, if Griff decides to share one with me, great. Then I could take you a little bit through it. If he gives me one that's like a preview, something that I can give you a peek inside. I can show you what AD&D looks like on the inside. First edition, second edition. Stuff like that. We'll have a look at all those. We'll have a look at a lot of independent games. Stuff you don't know anything about. Stuff you didn't know existed. In the meantime, Mr. Bub is staring at me and standing on his hind legs doing the little paw thing. Yeah, he just trilled at me. That means he's hungry and it's his feeding time. So I will see you guys tomorrow for Full Scale Friday. That's the full scale tarot readings I do. I just want you all to remember I love you all. I want you to take care of yourselves and each other. Just always, even if they're that guy. That guy that I just talked about. Don't let people like that dim your fucking light. If it's too bright for him, tell him to get a fair pair of fucking shades like I do. I'm light sensitive and I'm telling you. Shine on.